Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Laundry Gurus podcast. I'm your host, V, and this is Jim, and we're ready to rock and roll. This is episode two. Jim, you want to let everyone know what this is all about?
Yeah, so let's talk about the tail of the tape. In our last episode, we talked about the fact that we're actually going to do more than waft around bills and show you the money collected out of change machines, and we said we were going to bring the numbers. So why don't you talk about what the tail of the tape is here and sort of set the background for for that new store that you purchased a year ago?
Yeah, so it's been exactly 13 months since I closed escrow. I closed escrow on July 10th of last year. And, the reason why I bought the store was it only had 4-year-old machines. 4.5-year-old machine, something like that. And I noticed a lot of neglect and a lot of things that I would do differently at that location. So I saw some potential there and realized that, we can take this store to the next level, especially with the tools that it has. It already had Laundry Boss in there and it just wasn't being utilized the way I thought it needed to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that looking at the fact that it was a store that had been with us since 2019, we had plenty of data on the store, but you again in your review, you could see pretty quickly the fact there was potential there for the turnaround. So uh, we do a thing here called Washwise Analytics, and we get into the numbers. So at your request, I got into the numbers. So you gonna give me a drum roll?
Yes, sir.
So there we go. Let me sort of set the tail or set the stage here, which is these are real numbers. These are real numbers as you promised for the store, but these weren't the numbers that you drove. These were the numbers for the previous owner. So
Exactly.
if we look at it, this was for a year, and that number for the year was $255,356.11. The thing I like to point out is, again, this store has been with us for 6 years, and we had coin at 58%, or right about 59%, cash at 7%, credit at a little over 13, mobile at 17. Good numbers. 255,000. I think this was pretty much in line with what your expectation was. Actually in our early discussion. You said that you felt like the numbers were actually a little bit light.
Yeah. So during escrow, I started feeling him out, and with his permission, I was able to contact you guys and kind of get a little bit more deeper understanding of the numbers. And given given that he allowed that to happen, we started going through the numbers, crunching numbers, and I started looking at his expenses and how he portrayed it and what I thought it actually was. And I realized it was going to be it was making a little bit less than what he said. He said that it was supposed to be, netting about 6 grand a month, and I called BS on that. And over time, I was able to prove that, that wasn't the case. He had a lot of broken machines in the store. I would say 15% of the machines were out of order, even they were only 4 years old, by the way. So I can tell it was just a bad operator. There's no way a 4-year-old machine, unless it's being used 24/7, would have that many machines that have that many problems in such a little short period of time.
Right.
So, after analyzing and analyzing and analyzing, I came to the conclusion that I'm like, okay, this guy is just a poor operator, neglected the store, and he's just cheap, just didn't want to spend money on the store. Even though it was a brand new store, 4 years in my eyes, all new plumbing, all new electric, all new water heaters, everything, all new washers. Like, there's no way in 4 years that the income should be dipping this bad, and he blamed it on COVID, but sure, a lot of people got affected by that, but it wasn't. that wasn't the case. You know, a lot of people, yes, they got affected early on and then rebounded very, very quickly.
right? So these were his results. Now let's go to yours. Oh, what a difference a year makes.
Yep. 1 year, exactly
Now
1 year later.
take a look at that. That's $294,000 year over year. I think that's a tremendous comparison there. Um, and let's take the next step. So let's talk about the numbers, right? You look at the revenue, 294,025 and 64 cents for this past year, comparing that against the 255, 356. You're talking about a year over year increase of $38,669.
Yeah.
Um,
So So a couple things that aren't in these numbers. One is, yeah, $38,669 is the difference there. But one thing that my team did differently was the recording of the drop off. You know, if in the previous slide you look, it says drop off. So we only had $1,600 in there, whereas the guy had the previous owner had 7,200. He did a better job at recording all the fluff and fold drop off sales. What we did is we kind of um, we kind of did it a little bit more old fashioned to start with, and we have kind of our own system. My drop off was only at 1,600 here, but in reality, we did about $1,500 a month in drop off fluff and fold. Obviously, ramping up over time. You know, it took a few months in the beginning to really ramp up, but once I did, so this story paints a picture. It's not the full picture, but and that's our fault because we didn't, you know, put everything in the system. But if you add all that in, plus the vending machine sales, about $1,200 to $1,300 a month, I would say net profit on that is probably $600 a month. You know, we actually had an even bigger increase in income than what's shown here. We rocked out, and I think the point of today's podcast is, you know, really using, you know, knowing how to use your tools and understanding. Don't take anything that you have for granted as far as your tools go. Make sure you use it. And the one thing you and I kind of discovered was this guy hadn't been doing any promotions, hadn't been doing any kind of messaging, you know, which all the features are baked into the Laundry Boss backend. You know, we do promotions and we do notifications. It sends out a blast to everyone's phone. It comes up like a notification, just like any other app that you might have on your phone. And you know, he was underutilizing. He was underutilizing, and you know, with the neglect of the store, you know, it was very clear why his numbers were down. He had really bad Google reviews, and you know, I can proudly say today we are at 4.8 stars on Google, over 130, 140 reviews, you know, and I didn't start afresh when I took his over and really built on top of what he had. And he was down to like 4 stars at one point. So, you know, all of them were our authentic reviews. You know, you know, we just put something in the store saying, hey, if you like us, leave us a review, something like that. You know, it
yeah.
was, we didn't like walk around asking people for this, that, and the other, you know, which you can do, but we didn't do. And it just kind of organically happened because people saw the changes that we did.
If I look at the number and realizing, again, the percentage change, you're talking about a 15.15% increase year over year. And in our conversation preparing for this, I like the way you described it. You said, I have a 13th month and a 13th and a half month because you viewed it from the standpoint of what you knew the numbers were, and that this incremental revenue led to you looking at it differently. For me, I never would have described it as a 13th month or a 13th and a half month, but maybe that's a landlord, maybe that's excuse me, that's a laundromat owner thing, and I just liked it. It was an interesting way to look at it.
You know, definitely. Because like, you know, you close escrow today, let's say on your store or wherever. who cares? Like, how are people supposed to know this? How are people supposed to understand this? It takes time for this to actually um, kind of translate. And there's many different ways to translate this to the consumer to let them know, like, hey, we're here, we're new, and there's going to be changes, and you're going to love it. You know, getting that out there to the consumer. That's why the 13th month is important because the first month doesn't matter. My first month, I think we did like 19,000 gross revenue for the month, which was well below what he said the store was doing. And, that's why it's from here on out is also very important. The data from here on out. And I took at his date. I took a look at his data and really analyzed it, especially with you guys and your help, Jim. I appreciate you. And we took that and really took it to the next level. We understand where he was, maybe priced too low, where he was priced too high, what he was doing wrong, and just being there, seeing all of it. I'm like, wow, he's doing this wrong. He's doing this wrong.
Yeah. So I put this last box in because, understanding that it was a new store and your purchase that, and I think you got a great deal based on when you purchased it, because I think valuations have gone up even higher since then. But if I took that and then applied what your margin was and put the 4x multiplier over it, I'm trying to figure out that this is what your net worth increase is by making that purchase. Now, you made a great point, which again, this comes back to you being an operator. You said my costs are fixed, so
Yeah.
that when we started having this additional revenue, it wasn't like it was multiplicative for you because your costs were already borne out in that base, so that whatever additional you got only made you more profitable. And hey, I may have stole your thunder there,
No,
but
no, no. I'm so happy you brought that up. I'm losing my
yeah,
train of thought. It's like right around the afternoon, right around the siesta time. No, I'm kidding. I don't take siestas, but um really what happened, that's right, that's very correct. A lot of my costs were very fixed. My employees, I already paid the employees. They were already there. The only thing that changed was minimum wage went up. So sure, I paid an extra couple cents an hour, and I think I added an extra hour or two per day for the employees to be there. But other than and that wasn't because the business increased. That's because I wanted them there. um my insurance is the same. My rent is the same. It hasn't changed. The only thing that changed when I purchased the store was essentially, or whenever business got better, was my utility costs. Those were the only things that weren't fixed. Insurances, workers' comp, all that stuff was this pretty much the same. So a lot of it was a net profit boost. And let's say 60% of my income of that income was profit. And I kind of crunched some numbers here. Let's say 22,800 was of that was a net profit bump. Plus another thing we need to factor in, let's say $600 a month for vending, and then another, let's say, $1,500 a month for fluff and fold. If you add it all up, I'm getting $42,000 net profit increase. And
yeah.
we did that step by step, one by one, and really got in there and showed the customers what we're all about and what my management is all about. Not that I haven't
Yeah.
managed a company, but the way I like to manage personally.
That brings us right to what we were talking about, right? Which is MBWA, management by walking around. And I really enjoyed our conversation about, when you took that store over and you talked about doing the little things first. And
Yeah.
right away you went to paint. So
Yep.
I'm going to toss that back to you and talk about the
Sure.
value of a coat of paint.
The store is 2,400 square feet. A lot of the walls are covered by machines, dryers, washers, and some other plastic material they had put when they built it. So the rest of the store was walls. So I looked inside. I'm like, what's the thing I can change the fastest? Like, what can I do in 3 days or 4 days in time that costs me 2 grand or less? And I can make something looked completely different, and it was paint. Cost me about 2 grand. I think I spent $500 in paint, $1,500 in labor. So it was 2 grand, and the store completely looked completely different, and it just had a different aesthetic. And all of a sudden, when people walked in, they were like, "Whoa, what's going on?" That was number one. And I think one of the most important things, and I don't want to take your thunder, but MBWA stands for Management by Walking Around. So that's what I did. I spent some time there. Walked around, I talked to customers, I spoke to them, I figured out exactly what the issues were. And I asked them, like, what's wrong with the store? They said, well, the dryers don't dry well. I'm like, what the hell? Why don't the dryers dry
Hold
well?
on, V. Hold on. I want to set you up a little bit more
Sure.
because I do the slides for the presentation for the audience
Okay.
out. And I want you to know the first thing V said was, and I do this as an interview format. The first rule was you have to be present because I'm sitting here as a laundry boss and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm trying to translate the turns and revenue and how much money we're making. And I view it from a very numbers driven approach. And then in comes V. And this is where, when I take a look and I use this as the example, I want you to talk about that starting off in the parking lot because we were talking about the challenges and we're talking about revenue, and that when you applied yourself to it, your your view and what the ultimate solution was, again, it's yours. But I loved it, right? This
Yeah.
whole thing that when we come back to the booster pump and how that translated into real metrics and results that we could see inside the tool. So talk
Yeah.
about the parking lot.
I spent an hour standing in the parking lot. Simple as that. Boots on the ground, right? So I was there for 1 hour, 2 hours in the scalding sun in July, and I'm like, what is wrong? What's going on? So step by step, I went through this throughout the entire store. What's going on here? What's wrong? I'm looking at the floor. I'm understanding the parking lot, how we can fit more cars in there, and I noticed the floors are the concrete was cracked. The asphalt, I should say, was cracked. There's a lot of cracks. Whenever you're rolling the carts, the laundry carts, especially from the parking spot that's furthest from the entrance to the entrance of the store, there's so many cracks and bumps and uneven surfaces that the cart wouldn't move. The cart would stall and hit you in the shin and whatever else. That's what I did. I called my asphalt guy. He came in and put a nice layer, filled up those cracks. It only cost about 2,800 bucks at the time, and we did just a nice seal, and slight resurfacing, and fixing of a lot of those grooves and bumps and cracks. He filled those up, and just by doing this, customers were more happy. Those laundry carts slide properly now, especially over those cracks, and people aren't hurting themselves or falling or whatever else.
So I love that. But the thing I was really looking for was that when we talked about the numbers, you came in and we were talking about how do we get more people through.
Oh,
And your focus was on the individual machines and how long it took for the water to actually fill the washing machines. And you took a completely different approach and you started looking at the water pressure and putting in the boost pump.
funny
And
enough.
when you put in the boost pump, I could see it in the numbers. I could see it right in the numbers as soon as you did the boost pump.
So another issue I was noticed, I had to go in on a Sunday, which I don't like going in on to work on Sundays. It's my rest day, but I had to get in there one day. We had a small issue, and I arrive and I see someone, with the Laundry Boss app, and they're like, scan, 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 start. Boom. 7 washers at the same exact time started. And I'm watching it, and water wasn't filling in there. It was taking forever, Jim. I was like, why is it so slow? And it's Sunday, so a lot of washers are running at the same time. All the dryers are running. Not that that matters in this scenario, but a lot of people in the store, people are driving into my parking lot, driving right back out. I don't have any more parking spaces. and people are just lollygagging there. A 23, 24 minute wash was taking 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes. I was like, whoa, what's happening? Because I'm only seeing it during the week when I go in for collections, restocking, and all these other stuff, all these other things. And I'm now realizing that we have a water pressure issue. I quickly ran out to Home Depot, got a water valve or gauge, put it on the nearest faucet I can find, turn it on. I'm like, whoa, I'm only getting 40 psi right now. And as soon as someone would turn on a washer, that gauge would drop down to 10. So I called the water company and asked them, like, no, our reading is 60 psi. And I called BS on it because I'm seeing it with my own eyes. I'm seeing how slow the washers are filling. So I immediately called my plumber over and we had this bright idea to put in booster pumps. So we put in two he set it up. He did the piping in a way that we can install two booster pumps. But I bought one to start with to see if it would resolve the issue. So we put one and I was getting all the way up to 80, 90 psi, which is perfect. But as soon as there was too much demand, that sucker couldn't keep up and it would drop down to about 20, 25. So the machines would, it sped up. If you start 10 machines at the same exact time, it was it was still lagging. But if you started three, four, no issues. It fill up in time. So as soon as I saw that, I ordered the second booster pump. So we had two running at the same exact time. So main inlet from the city comes into the store, runs through two booster pumps, and then pumps straight to the cold water line, and then a second line that goes to the hot water heaters or the tankless. And now the water pressure issue has been completely resolved. I never drop below 45 psi in the store, and I'm often at 80, 85, and those washers fill up in about 2, 3 minutes now. So I'm
Yeah.
not wasting time. And the type of washers that I have water sensors in them. So the clock doesn't stop ticking until the water level's at the proper level, which I like because that means you're not stealing from the customer. So now within 2 minutes, that water is at the right water level, and that sucker's going. It's washing, washing, washing. Uh, and what this did is get people to the dryers quicker, get people folding quicker and back into the parking lot, into their cars and out way faster. So by doing this, I open up a parking space. Even if you open up 5 minutes faster, even if it makes a 5 minute difference, 10 minute difference on that, if that parking spot and someone came in and within that 5, 10 minutes and that parking spot's open, you just got another customer.
Yeah.
A lot of places don't have this issue. They have ample parking. I mean, they have huge lots, but in places that are really dense like New York, Boston, LA, Miami, um, uh, just these or San Francisco, these kinds of places where it's parking's a real big issue. You want to get people in and out as fast as possible, and with the high extraction washers I have, the booster pump I put in, now we get water flying to the machines fast. My extraction at the end of the wash is super fast. That means my dryer time is only 15, 20 minutes. So we got 23 minutes plus 2 minutes for the fill time. We got 25 minutes on the wash. We got 15 to 20 minutes on the dry, about 15, maximum 20 for the fold. Usually, a lot of times people like throwing it in a bag and just doing it at home. So under an hour, I get people in and out of my store now.
So V, you just made such a great point, which is when I was taking a look, I could see something was happening because I could watch the turns per day and I could see the revenue happening, but I didn't know on the back end what you were doing. And this comes back to your 15 years as an operator. Okay.
Correct.
Um, and I'm going to come back to the very last one, which we have in here, which is the technology upgrades, because I'm going to pay you a real compliment because what you've done, and you sort of mentioned it in here, you surround yourself with all sorts of different, and you call them resources, right? You have your guy for the plumbing, you have your electrician, you have your parking lot guy, you have your technology guy. You surround and you create the team that allows you to achieve this level of success. And the funny part is that even me on the technology side, I'm solving just one part of the problem. But in my position, I can't do that for all owners. That if they're not applying themselves, if they don't have this level of sophistication to look at the laundromat to figure out what the real issue is, because I was part of the solution. I wasn't the only solution. I wasn't the only reason that we saw that number go up, but I was part of your team.
100%.
So, I think that brings us to a great place because hey, this is only episode 2, but we also understand, and we're going to do a whole lot of more of this with numbers. But one of the things that we want to do is we want to expand and we want to talk to other laundromat owners. We want to find other people out here in the space that have the same sort of challenges that can be part of a podcast like this, that we
100%.
can help you, that we can start to help bring our experience, our knowledge, bring it to the table to help you run a better, a better, more profitable store. So,
100%.
I mean,
If whether people want to join our podcast, come in and chime in, whether people want to give us a call or shoot us an email and need our help or consulting or whatever, our doors are open. That's why we're here, Jim, and because we want to put out correct and honest content, not just flaunt a bunch of cash around, and tell people like, hey, look how much money I made today. No, that's not important. We want to make sure people understand exactly how we got there and what the process was. And
yeah.
I think it's a good point to bring up the technology aspect of, what went down. Uh, Another thing I noticed was taking a lot of time in the store, Jim, was the tech. Um, uh, the the store was built about 4.5, 5 years prior, about 4.5 years, and the tech had changed. Even at Laundry Boss, you guys had a way better hub that communicated way quicker to your guys' side, and back to the machines way faster. So all I needed to do was upgrade that hub, and the time it took for someone to start a machine drastically dropped. And I just put another broadcasting MIB inside of the store, so it pinged the machine way faster. So before it was just relying on one, now I had two. So depending on what side of the store you're in, it would ping the machine right as soon as it got the message to. So that brought down. I know it doesn't shave that much time, but even if it was 30 seconds, a minute, minute and a half, whatever it was, whatever I could shave, I shaved, and the customers are way happier. They're like, oh, the app, no, it works very quickly. It works very fast. I love it. It's great.
The beauty of, again, you're a sophisticated owner and you take a holistic view of your laundromat. And this is complex math. These are complex issues because the whole goal is how do I maximize the return that I'm getting to wring every bit of profit out of this laundromat? And that is what you do better than probably 95% or maybe even 98% of the other laundromat owners out there. So there's a lot of value we want to bring. And you run very profitable and successful stores. And hats off to you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you,
Great
Jim.
episode number 2.
Yes, sir.
Uh, hey, let's talk about this. The other thing we want is ideas. Mr. V has been very open in the fact that we're going to share data, we're going to share numbers. So there's going to be a lot of topics that we have, but if you have topics you want to hear about, let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit the like button, right?
Yes, sir. Please, guys, like, subscribe. It really helps us out and gets the right information to the right people at the right time.
Time for our tagline, V. Let's
Let's do
let's do it.
let's do it, guys.
Let's do it.
Appreciate you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
Bye now.